The Hall of Stars had never been this silent. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the vast chamber, yet not a single voice dared to rise above a whisper. The air shimmered with light from floating symbols and drifting banners that showed the colors of every major power. At the center of the hall stood the throne of Accord, an ancient seat built from dark metal and glowing lines that moved like slow rivers of light. This was the day the galaxy would choose a king. For centuries, the Galactic Council ruled through debate and balance. No single ruler had held power since the last great collapse, when empires burned and entire species vanished. But times had changed. Border wars spread like fire, trade routes failed, and old treaties broke apart. The council had decided that unity needed a face, a crown needed a head. The chosen ruler stood near the throne, tall and heavy with armor that looked grown rather than forged. His name was Lord Valric, leader of one of the oldest and strongest civilizations still standing. His people controlled fleets that could darken stars. To most of the galaxy, his rule felt natural, even comforting. Strength meant safety, order meant survival. The council members gathered in a wide circle around the throne. Each seat hovered above the floor, shaped for its owner. Some were covered in fur, others in scales, metal, or light. Among them sat the human delegation. Humans were new. Compared to most species present, humanity was young, loud, and fragile. Their territory was small. Their fleets were modest. They were invited to the council only a few decades earlier, more out of curiosity than respect. Today they were observers, nothing more. Elias Ward sat quietly among them. He wore no armor, no ceremonial robes, just a dark suit, simple and plain. His hair was short, his face calm, but his eyes moved constantly. He watched the banners, the council, the throne. He listened. Around him, other human delegates shifted nervously. This place made them feel small. The ceiling rose so high it vanished into glowing mist. The throne itself felt alive, as if it were watching everyone in return. Elias felt it too. When he first entered the hall, a strange pressure settled in his chest. Not pain, not fear, more like attention. He brushed the feeling aside, telling himself it was nerves. This day mattered, even if humanity had no real voice in it. A low tone echoed through the chamber. The ceremony began. An elder counselor floated forward, its body wrapped in soft light, its voice carried without effort, calm and heavy with age. It spoke of chaos, of loss, of the need for a single will to guide the galaxy forward. Each word was met with silent agreement. Then came the vote. One by one, symbols lit up around the hall, each representing a council world. Almost all glowed the same deep blue. Approval. The choice was clear. Lord Valric stepped forward. As he approached the throne, the light within it brightened. The moving lines across its surface shifted faster, as if waking from a long sleep. Scholars leaned forward. Priests bowed their heads. This throne was old beyond measure, built by a civilization that vanished before recorded history. It was said to judge those who sat upon it. No one doubted Valric. He placed one armored hand on the arm of the throne and lowered himself into the seat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the throne flared with light. Energy rippled outward, washing over the hall. Banners fluttered. Several counselors recoiled slightly. The throne accepted him. A crown of light formed above Valric's head, lowering slowly until it rested just above his brow. The galaxy had a king. Applause rose, strange and uneven, made of sounds from 100 worlds. The elder counselor raised its hands, announcing a new era of unity and strength. Elias did not clap. His eyes were locked on the throne. Something was wrong. The light was too sharp. The lines across the throne did not move smoothly anymore. They jerked, hesitated as if correcting themselves. The crown above Valric flickered for a heartbeat before steadying. No one else seemed to notice. Elias leaned forward slightly, his pulse quickening. The pressure in his chest returned, stronger now. He felt a pull, like gravity tugging at his thoughts. Valric rose from the throne, turning to face the council. He lifted one arm and the applause died instantly. His voice was deep, confident, filled with authority. He spoke of peace through strength, of ending conflict by force if needed, of bringing order to a galaxy that had forgotten how to obey. Many counselors nodded. Elias felt cold. This was not unity. This was fear wearing a crown. As Valric spoke, the throne dimmed slightly behind him. The flowing line slowed. A soft, almost silent tone echoed, too low for most to hear. Elias heard it, his breath caught. The sound was not a warning. It was a question. Without thinking, Elias stood. A few heads turned. A human rising during the coronation was unexpected, Improper. One of the human delegates whispered his name urgently, trying to pull him back down. Elias ignored them. His eyes stayed on the throne. The pressure became unbearable. His heart raced. Every instinct screamed at him to sit down, to stay quiet, to remember his place. But another part of him, deeper and calmer, pushed forward. The throne's light shifted. Several counselors noticed now. Murmurs spread. The elder counselor paused mid-speech, its glow flickering with confusion. Valak turned. His gaze fell on Elias, sharp and dismissive. A human. "What is this interruption?" Valak demanded. The words carried power, enhanced by the throne. They should have crushed Elias, forced him to his knees. They did not. Elias swallowed. His voice felt small in the vast hall, but it did not shake. "There is something wrong," he said. A ripple of disbelief passed through the chamber. Valric laughed, a harsh sound. "You dare question the throne? You?" Elias did not answer him. His eyes returned to the ancient seat. The light along its surface pulsed, brighter near him. The elder counselor floated closer, its tone stern. "Human observer, this moment is not yours. Sit down." Elias opened his mouth to reply, then froze. A single line of light lifted from the throne, thin as a thread, reaching toward him. Gasps echoed. The line stopped inches from Elias's chest, hovering, trembling. The pressure vanished. In its place came clarity. Images flashed through Elias's mind. Stars forming, civilizations rising and falling. A people who built not to rule, but to endure. A throne made not to command obedience, but to test purpose. Elias staggered, gripping the edge of his seat to stay upright. The line of light withdrew. The throne dimmed. Silence crashed down harder than any applause. Valak's smile was gone. The elder counselor stared at Elias, its glow unstable. "What did you do?" it asked. Elias shook his head slowly. "I don't know," he said honestly. But deep inside, something had changed. He felt it settle, quiet and heavy, like a truth waiting to be spoken. The throne had listened, and the galaxy had just seen it. Far above the hall, unseen systems awakened for the first time in ages, reacting not to the crowned king, but to the human who dared to stand. After the coronation, the chamber emptied slowly, leaving only the most important council members, the crowned king and the human delegation. Whispers filled the hall, and shadows stretched along the walls, reflecting the worry and confusion that no one dared speak aloud. Elias Ward walked with careful steps, keeping his eyes on the throne of accord. Even now its lines of light shifted, hesitated, and pulsed faintly as though testing him. He had not moved toward it on purpose. Somehow the throne had called him, and he had felt no fear. That feeling was still there, soft and steady, like an invisible hand guiding him. His chest tightened as he approached, noticing how all the council members avoided looking directly at him. Not even the elders, who had centuries of authority, met his gaze. The crowned king, Lord Valric, stood near the throne, fuming silently. He looked down on Elias as one would look at a small insect, dangerous only in imagination. Valric's eyes glimmered with anger, and he motioned to his advisors, who flanked him in dark metallic robes. They whispered furiously, arguing in tones only the king could understand. Elias could not hear their words, but the tension was clear. Elias stopped a few feet from the throne. The pulsing lines of light grew stronger, almost as if they were waiting for him to act. He reached out, hesitant, and brushed a hand over the armrest. The throne hummed, softly at first, then louder, vibrating with an energy that made his fingers tingle. The room grew warmer, and the metallic scent of the hall sharpened. He pulled his hand back, startled but not scared. His mind was clear, sharper than it had ever been. The elder counselor floated forward. Its soft glow shimmered, and its voice echoed through the chamber, firm and questioning. "Human, what are you doing? This throne is not for you. You are not of this council. Stand back before you disrupt what has been chosen." Elias nodded slowly. He understood their fear. It was not just about a human touching the throne. It was about what the throne might do in response. The energy surrounding it seemed alive, as if it could sense weakness, strength, or intention. He felt his mind clearing even further, as if the throne was showing him truths no one else could see. A flicker of light traced the edge of the crown above Valric's head. He reached forward instinctively, tightening his grip. The throne pulsed, responding not to the king, but to Elias. The lines of energy stretched from the seat and toward the human, coiling gently around him. The air in the room vibrated with quiet intensity. Several council members gasped and moved back, unsure if the energy would strike. Elias felt the flow of knowledge enter his mind. He saw images of ancient civilizations, stars rising and falling, fleets destroyed by war, treaties broken, and worlds abandoned. He understood things no human had ever known: the design of the throne, the purpose of its builders, and the reason it had waited so long for someone like him. He did not feel power. Balak's voice rose, commanding and thunderous, amplified by the throne. "Step away, human. This seat answers to me. I am the chosen king." Elias did not respond verbally. Instead, he focused on the energy and the visions. He felt the throne hesitate, the pulsing light dimming around the crown, the lines shifting. The king was strong, yes, but rigid. The throne sought more than strength. It sought understanding, balance, and decision. The elder counselor floated closer, its glow pulsing nervously. "This is unprecedented," it said. "Never has a non-royal, never has a human been recognized by the throne of accord. You are interfering in fate itself." Elias shook his head, not fully understanding himself. He only knew that the throne had chosen, in a way he did not yet fully comprehend. The energy around him wrapped tighter, not violently, but insistently, drawing him closer to the center of the hall. Other humans stepped back, eyes wide with fear and awe. Valric advanced toward him, armor clinking softly, and his expression darkened. He gestured to his advisors, but the light around Elias resisted. The energy line stretched to meet him, almost protective, almost warning. The king raised his voice, summoning power, commanding obedience. Yet the throne refused to respond as before. It pulsed, waiting, analyzing. Elias's mind cleared further. He saw that the throne had not made a mistake. It had been built to respond only to those capable of bearing responsibility beyond force. The king understood command, but not care. Leadership, in the way the throne expected, required more than power. It required foresight, empathy, and the willingness to make choices that no one else could bear. The chamber grew tense. Several council members whispered urgently among themselves. Some began to shift their loyalty, sensing a change they could not name. Valric's face flushed with anger. He took a step closer, trying to assert dominance, but the throne pulsed stronger near Elias, dimming around Valric. His crown flickered, unstable for the first time. Elias stood tall, although he felt no pride, only clarity. The energy around him wrapped tighter, illuminating his form faintly. The council could see it. The king could feel it. The throne had recognized him, and no one present knew what it meant. Not yet. Valak's advisors whispered harshly, their voices sharp with fear. The elder counselor spoke again, this time with urgency. "Human, step back. You do not understand the weight you are engaging with." Elias nodded again, acknowledging their warning, but he did not step back. He was not sure why, only that something deep inside him responded to the throne in a way that no one else could. He felt connected, as if the throne's builders had left instructions embedded in its structure, waiting for a species that could interpret them. Valak's voice rose in desperation and authority. "The throne obeys me. I am the king. Stand down or be removed." The pulsing light around Elias brightened, stretching out across the chamber, illuminating symbols on the walls, patterns on the banners, and inscriptions no one had noticed before. The symbols told a story of judgment and selection. They spoke of a trial, not of combat, but of choice and responsibility. The throne had waited, and now the waiting was over. Elias's chest tightened with awareness. The energy was not giving him strength. It was giving him understanding. The weight of decisions, the burden of leadership, the responsibility of life and death, these were things the throne measured. Valric had strength, but he lacked the willingness to shoulder the unseen consequences. A counselor from the outer rim, a creature with scales of silver, gasped. "The throne responds to the human." The words echoed, disbelief and fear mixing. The chamber fell silent. Valric's hand trembled near the crown. The throne hummed, pulsing in rhythm with Elias's heartbeat. The energy grew dense yet calm, surrounding him completely. The king's presence was commanding but powerless against the choice of the throne itself. Elias felt the weight of history pressing upon him. He realized that humanity, dismissed for so long, had qualities that the throne sought: adaptability, humility, and a willingness to face responsibility without arrogance. These were rare traits, perhaps unique to his species in the galaxy. Valric stepped back, visibly shaken. The crown above him flickered again, threatening to collapse. He looked at Elias with disbelief and anger, realizing that his power meant nothing here. The throne had judged not by conquest or fear, but by something far older and more subtle: The elder counselor floated closer once more. Its glow steadied. You human have been recognized. You do not yet understand the meaning, but the throne has seen what you can carry. Be warned, the path ahead is not safe. Not for you, and not for the galaxy. Elias's lips parted slightly, but he only nodded. Words felt unnecessary. The awareness, the understanding, the knowledge flooding his mind, it was enough. He understood responsibility, even if he did not yet understand the future. Valric's advisors whispered frantically, trying to regain control. Some counselors moved closer to their own species' leaders, unsure if they should act or flee. The chamber's energy hummed, alive, almost impatient. Elias took a step back, allowing the energy to recede slowly. The throne dimmed, yet its recognition lingered, faint lines of light pulsing along its surface like a heartbeat. He knew it had chosen him, even if no one else could yet comprehend what that meant. The crowned king turned sharply, eyes blazing, but the fire in them no longer commanded the throne. The hall echoed with silence, heavier than any sound before. The council stared, unsure of what had just happened. The human delegate who had tried to stop Elias approached, trembling, whispering frantic questions, but Elias did not answer. He did not need to. The throne had spoken, the king had faltered, and humanity had shown a glimpse of something no one expected, that even a species new to galactic politics could shape destiny. As the hall emptied, leaving only the most essential observers, Elias walked slowly toward the exit. The pressure in his chest eased, replaced by awareness. He knew the throne would not forget him. He knew that the galaxy was watching, and that change had begun quietly, invisibly, and perhaps irreversibly. Weeks passed since the coronation, and the galaxy was unsettled. The council struggled to maintain order, while whispers of the human who had drawn the throne of Accord's attention spread like wildfire. Some feared the implications, others were fascinated. Elias Ward had become the center of quiet speculation, though he remained in the background, careful and watchful. He traveled between worlds, consulting with scholars, diplomats, and defectors who had left the king's command. Even those loyal to Valric began to question their ruler. The throne of Accord had rejected the strongest warrior, the most powerful fleet commander, and responded instead to a human no one expected. That fact alone made allies uneasy and enemies aggressive. Elias stayed mostly on human worlds, but his presence was noticed everywhere. In council chambers and secret meetings, his name was spoken in hushed tones. Some saw him as a threat. Some saw him as a sign of hope. He had no intention of taking sides. Yet everywhere he went, the energy of the throne seemed to follow him like an invisible shadow. One evening, on a quiet planet with forests that glowed faintly under twin moons, Elias met Kale, a former admiral who had served Valric for decades. Kale's body was covered in metallic scales, his eyes reflecting the faint lights of the moons. He spoke in low tones, choosing each word carefully. "You've changed things," Kale said. "I've served kings, emperors, and commanders. Never have I seen a throne choose in this way." The council is fractured. Valric is furious. He will act soon, understanding the weight behind the words. The galaxy's strongest fleets were mobilizing, yet they were directed by a king the throne no longer recognized. "What do you want from me?" Elias asked. Kale shook his head. "Nothing. I cannot command the throne. You can. I can only guide and perhaps protect. You are the only one who can interpret what the throne seeks. That is dangerous." "Dangerous, yes, but necessary." Elias nodded. He felt the connection to the throne stronger than ever. He could feel its pulse in quiet moments, in private chambers, even across the vast distances of space. It was a weight, but also a clarity. The throne demanded understanding, and he could provide it, if only he remained cautious. Meanwhile, Valric was gathering his fleets, each system loyal to him, preparing for action. The king refused to accept that the throne had shown preference for a human. To him, it was impossible. The throne of Accord had been a symbol of absolute power, not understanding. Yet the crown above his head had flickered in ways no advisor could explain. Every advisor, every general, whispered in fear that the throne's choice was not final, but dangerous. Elias moved quietly, gathering information, learning about the strategies Valric might use. He spoke with traders, engineers, and messengers. Every piece of knowledge mattered, every small choice mattered. The throne had taught him that strength alone could not protect worlds. Knowledge, judgment, and timing were more powerful than fleets. One night, while monitoring movements near a star system on the edge of Valric's territory, Elias noticed something troubling. Ships moved faster than expected, coordinated with precise timing. An attack was planned, not at the center of the galaxy, but at a critical human colony. The aim was not to destroy fleets, but to break morale and send a warning. The counselors who had started to doubt Valric were silent, unable to act until the king made his move. Elias consulted with Kale. Together, they devised a plan not of battle, but of intervention. They would reveal Valric's intentions, disrupt his strategy, and expose his lack of understanding. It was risky. The king's fleets were vast, and his officers loyal. But if they succeeded, they could prevent bloodshed and show the galaxy that leadership required more than force. The night of the operation arrived. Elias, Kale, and a small group of trusted allies approached the colony in stealth ships. Their movement was unseen, a ghost operation. As they entered orbit, they found the human colony under threat. Valric's forces had surrounded the world. Weapons pointed, warnings sent. Panic had begun to spread among the colonists. Elias acted calmly. Using knowledge gained from the throne, he created signals that disrupted the coordination of Valric's fleets. Communications were jammed, paths rerouted, ships hesitated, leaders argued. Confusion spread like wildfire. Valric's attack was not destroyed, but it was slowed, and the advantage shifted. In the council chambers, news arrived that Valric's fleets were in disarray. The crowned king's advisors whispered in disbelief. How could a single human cause this? No one understood. The throne had not acted directly. It had guided Elias, and he had acted with clarity and precision. Strength alone had failed. Valak erupted in rage. He demanded answers, calling for reports, summoning his generals. Yet no report satisfied him. Talming. Each account contradicted another. His fleet, powerful as it was, had been stalled by a human using only knowledge and timing. The throne's influence, invisible yet undeniable, was at work. Elias returned to his ship, watching the colony below. The human settlers were frightened but alive. No one knew of the intervention. No one needed to. The galaxy was learning quietly, piece by piece, that leadership could take unexpected forms. Kale looked at Elias, his eyes reflecting the faint starlight. "You are not just human," he said. "You are something else. The throne recognizes it." Others may never understand, but it does. Elias remained silent. He did not feel proud. He felt responsible. The throne's judgment was not a gift. It was a challenge. One day the galaxy would demand more than clever interventions. One day he might have to face Valric directly, and that encounter would test not only skill, but judgment and character. Word of the incident spread quietly among the council. Fear and curiosity intermingled. Some worlds began to doubt Valric, while others prepared for conflict. Elias remained unseen. A shadow moving between systems, a human at the center of events far larger than he had ever imagined. As he looked out into space, the lines of stars stretching infinitely, he realized something important. The throne was not a weapon. It was not a tool for conquest. It was a measure of responsibility, and he had been chosen not because of strength, but because of willingness. For the first time, Elias understood fully that his actions would shape the galaxy, not by force, not by fleets, but by understanding, by choice, by the courage to stand when no one else would. And the throne was watching, always waiting. For the next move, for the next choice, for the human who could carry what others could not. He did not yet know the full scope of what the throne required. That knowledge would come in time. For now, he prepared, watching, learning, understanding, and knowing that the galaxy had changed forever, and that humanity had just begun to show its worth. The galaxy was on the edge of chaos. Valric's anger had not faded. If anything, it had grown sharper with every failed maneuver and every quiet intervention that stopped his plans. Rumors of a human guiding events had reached the far corners of the galaxy, and disbelief turned quickly into fear. The crowned king's followers debated openly, some questioning their loyalty, others plotting to remove the human who had caused so much disruption. Elias Ward remained hidden, moving between worlds, using knowledge from the throne to stay one step ahead. He did not seek glory. He sought understanding. Each action he took, each choice he made, was measured carefully. Every step was deliberate because he felt the weight of not just his life, but the lives of billions across the galaxy. The throne's energy remained faintly with him, guiding, testing, and teaching. On the edge of a stormlit planet, Elias met with Kale again. The former admiral's eyes were serious, reflecting the faint electrical flashes of the sky. "Valric will not stop," Kale said. "He believes the throne can be forced. He believes in power, and he refuses to understand. We have to prepare for war." Elias nodded slowly. "Not with weapons," he said. "We will not beat him by force. We will beat him by revealing truth, by showing the galaxy the limits of his understanding." Kale frowned. You think the council will support this? They are afraid of him. They will not have to support it, Elias replied. They will see it, and then they will have no choice. Valric's fleets were already in motion. His ships cut through the void with precision, targeting key systems ready to assert dominance. Each action, though, followed patterns that Elias had studied. The throne's energy allowed him to sense the weakest points in the strategy, where hesitation could be exploited without violence. It was not a battle of lasers and cannons, but of timing, coordination, and understanding. Elias moved through space carefully, guiding communications, redirecting fleets without firing a single shot. Ships stumbled, leaders argued, and Valric's authority weakened silently. The crowned king's anger became desperation, but he did not know why he could not succeed. The throne, invisible yet potent, had chosen a different path. During this time, Elias observed the reactions of the counselors. Some worlds began to distance themselves from Valric. Some whispered to one another, questioning what they had always believed. The galaxy's leaders realized, even if they could not yet articulate it, that the throne's recognition of a human was a sign that strength alone no longer commanded loyalty. Wisdom, judgment, and the courage to act without fear mattered more than armies or fleets. One night, Elias and Kale landed on a quiet outpost far from the main conflict. They gathered a small group of trusted allies to prepare for a decisive act. It was not an attack. It was a revelation. By carefully orchestrating events, they could expose Valric's errors to the galaxy without bloodshed, demonstrating that true leadership required more than power and fear. As the plan unfolded, Elias watched from the command center of the outpost. Communications were intercepted, fleets were redirected, and Valric's strategy collapsed in a series of unexpected delays and misalignments. Ships that had moved with precision now drifted, lost in confusion. Orders were delayed. Commands contradicted each other. The galaxy watched as Valric's mighty forces failed without direct conflict. News spread quickly through subspace channels. Worlds began questioning the crowned king openly. His advisors could no longer hide the truth. His power, previously unquestioned, was faltering because he could not see the consequences of his choices. The throne's judgment was not violent. It was revealing the flaws in those who sought control without understanding. Elias observed quietly, guiding the final steps. He did not intervene with force, but with knowledge, timing, and understanding. Valric's image, once untouchable, was slowly crumbling across the galaxy. The throne had not acted directly, but it had empowered a human to show the limits of absolute power. The council sent envoys to assess the situation. Some were fearful, others intrigued. Reports detailed the confusion and failure of Valric's forces. The crowned king's advisors whispered in panic. Valric himself realized, too late, that he had underestimated the human and the throne that had guided him. The throne's recognition came with responsibility, and responsibility required action. The galaxy had been tested, and the test had exposed weaknesses, not in fleets or weapons, but in character and judgment. Humans, young and underestimated, had shown a capacity that no one else had anticipated. Kale watched the results with quiet satisfaction. "The galaxy will remember this," he said. "They may not understand it fully, but they will remember." Elias nodded, still focused on the patterns, the decisions, and the movements. This was a moment of clarity, but not victory. The crowned king was still dangerous, still powerful, and still angry. The throne's choice had set the stage for confrontation, but that confrontation had yet to come. The human delegation on the outpost looked to Elias with hope and fear. They had seen his actions save worlds without firing a weapon. They had seen a human stand where no one expected, guided by something ancient, mysterious, and powerful. The galaxy was beginning to shift, quietly, imperceptibly, and yet irrevocably. Elias gazed into the vast darkness of space, understanding that the coming days would demand more than clever strategies. They would demand courage, judgment, and the willingness to bear responsibility when the consequences were unknown. The throne's choice was not a gift. It was a challenge, one that he accepted silently, knowing that humanity's role in the galaxy had just begun and that the true test was yet to come. The day came when confrontation could no longer be avoided. The crowned king, Valric, had gathered his fleets, stronger than ever, determined to remove the human who had interfered with his rule. Entire systems braced for conflict, yet the attacks were delayed, tentative, as though the galaxy itself hesitated at the question of a human standing against an alien king. Elias Ward moved steadily through the command center of a hidden station. His eyes scanned the maps, communications, and fleet movements. He was calm, not because he feared nothing, but because he understood. The throne's energy pulsed faintly, as if it were alive and judging, guiding him with subtle insistence. Every move had to be deliberate, every choice weighed. The galaxy's fate balanced on the edge of decision. Kale, the former admiral, stood beside him, metallic scales glinting in the light of the station. "This will not be easy," Kale said. "Valric has strength, fleets, and fear. He will not back down. His pride will make him reckless." Elias nodded. "He will fail not because of my strength, but because of understanding. He cannot see what the throne requires." The plan was simple yet intricate. Elias would not fight with weapons. He would expose Valric's failures, guide the galaxy to see the limits of blind power, and force a reckoning without bloodshed. Every fleet movement, every communication, every small intervention counted. Precision mattered more than firepower, timing more than cannons. The throne's guidance ensured that no step was wasted. Valric's forces moved into position, ready to strike, confident in their superiority. The king's voice boomed across communications, demanding obedience, loyalty, and immediate submission from any who doubted him. His confidence was absolute, yet cracks already appeared. Hesitation in his fleets, small delays in execution, confusion among commanders, all unnoticed by him, but visible to Elias through careful observation and the subtle influence of the throne. The first signs of disruption appeared as fleets that should have moved together arrived scattered. Valric's attacks lacked coordination. Systems that were meant to surrender held firm, confusing the king's officers. Communications were intercepted, redirected, and clarified to show the futility of his plans. Slowly, the crown's influence began to shift the perception of the galaxy. Worlds whispered, not of rebellion, but of doubt. If the throne did not support Valric, what power did he truly hold? Elias acted with patience. He coordinated with allies across multiple systems, guiding them to act at precise times, creating openings, revealing weaknesses, and exposing the arrogance of a king who relied solely on strength. No weapon fired. No fleet destroyed. Yet Valric's image of invincibility began to crumble. A counselor from a distant system arrived unexpectedly. She was covered in crystalline scales, and her voice carried a sharp, ringing tone. "Alias Ward," she said. "You have altered events across more systems than I can count. The Crowned King's strategy has faltered entirely. Tell us, what are you doing?" Elias explained carefully, not of power, but of choice and responsibility. The throne recognizes responsibility, not force. Valric is strong, but he cannot bear what is required. Leadership is more than domination. The galaxy will follow only what understands the consequences of its actions. The counselor considered his words, then nodded. Orders spread quietly, showing support for intervention without violence. Systems began to realign, subtly, as if guided by unseen hands. The crowned king did not yet realize that his power was slipping, not because of force, but because of clarity, judgment, and timing. Valric, enraged by the slow collapse of his plans, demanded a direct confrontation. His flagship moved to the center of a system where Elias had set a trap of perception. There would be no lasers, no combat, yet the outcome would decide who held authority. Elias met the king in the orbital chamber above a neutral planet. The throne had not moved, but its energy pulsed around them both. Valric's armor gleamed, his eyes filled with fury and disbelief. "You dare challenge me?" he roared. "I am the chosen king. This throne answers to me." Elias stood calmly. The throne answers to what is worthy, not to fear, not to strength alone. Valric's advisors whispered urgently, their fear growing. The king reached for the throne, expecting it to obey, but the lines of energy remained faint, dim, responding only to Elias's presence. For the first time, Valric faced not the galaxy, but judgment. The throne had revealed a truth no one else could force. Authority was not claimed by fleets or fear, but by wisdom, foresight, and responsibility. The king's hands trembled. He had commanded worlds, fleets, and fear itself, yet here he was powerless. His crown flickered, lines of light pulsing irregularly. The throne's voice, silent yet potent, seemed to whisper to Elias, "Choose wisely. The galaxy watches." The weight of choice rested upon him, as heavy and real as the stars themselves. Elias stepped closer. He did not attack. He did not demand submission. He simply stood, calm, unwavering. The energy around the throne strengthened subtly, acknowledging him. The king's face, once confident and commanding, twisted in anger, disbelief, and fear. His fleet hesitated in orbit, sensing something intangible had shifted. The council watched from afar, some still afraid, others beginning to see a new reality. Authority was not given. It was earned, demonstrated, and recognized. A human, underestimated and dismissed, had guided the galaxy without firing a weapon, without destroying a fleet. The throne had empowered him not for conquest, but for demonstration. Elias's mind was clear. He understood fully the responsibility, the burden, and the challenge. He raised his voice, calm but strong. A strength alone does not make a ruler. Authority without understanding is chaos. The throne judges not by power, but by the willingness to bear consequence. The words spread across communications, reaching fleets, worlds, and council chambers. Valric's control weakened further. The energy of the throne expanded subtly, touching the perceptions of those who had been loyal. Doubt crept into minds that had never questioned the king. His image faltered under scrutiny. Valric's face turned red with rage, but he could not act. The throne's judgment had been delivered. Elias did not claim it, but he stood as its interpreter. For the first time, the king realized he could no longer command obedience without understanding, and that a human had revealed the limits of his authority. Kale stepped forward. "The galaxy sees it now," he said. "Not by fleets, not by fear, but by understanding. Elias, you have done what no one else could." He did not feel triumph. He felt responsibility. The throne's choice was not a reward, it was a test. The galaxy had been shown what mattered: judgment, foresight, and the courage to bear consequences. Valric, powerful and proud, had failed because he relied on force alone. As silence fell in the orbital chamber, the lines of energy around the throne pulsed once more, steady and clear. The galaxy had witnessed a shift, quiet yet undeniable. The crowned king's power was not destroyed, but it was challenged. Authority had been measured, and the human had shown that true leadership was more than strength. Elias turned from the throne, knowing the future held challenges still greater. The crowned king would recover, but the message was clear: power without understanding falters. Authority is recognized, not demanded. And humanity, young and underestimated, had begun to show its worth across the stars. The galaxy had changed. Valric's fleets returned to their stations, disciplined but hesitant. The once feared power of the crowned king diminished not by battle, but by revelation. Reports of human influence, subtle yet decisive, had reached every world. The council debated quietly, unsure how to proceed. The throne remained empty, waiting, pulsing with calm energy, aware that a human had shown the qualities it sought. Elias Ward moved steadily through the corridors of a neutral star station, flanked by Kale and a small group of trusted allies. The station was quiet, almost serene, a stark contrast to the tension that had gripped the galaxy for weeks. Elias did not feel relief nor triumph. He felt responsibility. The throne had chosen, the king had faltered, but the work of leadership was just beginning. Kale's metallic scales reflected the soft light of the station as he spoke. "The crowned king will not forget this, Elias. He may not surrender his fleets or his pride, but the perception of his authority has changed. The galaxy knows that strength alone is not enough." Elias nodded. "It is not about defeating him. It is about showing the galaxy the consequences of unbalanced power. Leadership requires understanding, foresight, and the willingness to bear responsibility. The throne recognized that, and I will carry it forward, quietly." The council convened to assess the situation. Worlds once loyal to Valric sent envoys, some cautious, some defiant. They presented reports of fleet hesitations, failed commands, and the subtle disruptions caused by the human. The throne had not acted directly, yet its influence had been clear. Leaders began to reconsider their allegiances, questioning long-held assumptions about power, authority, and judgment. Elias observed quietly from a distance, communicating only when necessary. The throne's presence was faint but constant, a guide, a measure of responsibility. Every choice he made was deliberate. Every action weighed. He did not seek to dominate, only to demonstrate what true leadership meant. The galaxy had seen the first lessons, but the future remained uncertain. On a remote observation deck, Elias met with counselors from several systems. They were cautious, aware of the crowned king's presence and influence, yet intrigued by the human who had altered events. "Why him?" one counselor asked. "Why a human?" Elias considered the question. "The throne chooses not by strength, but by responsibility. Humans, young and underestimated, possess adaptability, judgment, and the willingness to face consequences that others may avoid. That is why the throne responded." The counselor nodded slowly. The room fell into quiet reflection. Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of Elias's actions continued to unfold. Systems reconsidered alliances, leaders debated new approaches, and the crowned king's authority, while still present, no longer carried the unquestioned weight it once had. Valric himself remained on his flagship, isolated and frustrated. He could not understand how a human had guided events so effectively without firing a weapon or destroying a fleet. Pride, the thing that had built his empire, now blinded him to the subtle lessons the throne had demonstrated. His fleets obeyed, but his influence was no longer absolute. Doubt crept into the minds of those who had once followed without question. Elias, observing from afar, understood the delicate balance. The throne had not crowned him king, nor had it destroyed Valric's power. It had demonstrated a principle that leadership required more than fear and strength. Responsibility, foresight, and the courage to act wisely mattered most. The human who had stood when no one else would had shown this truth, and the galaxy had taken note. Weeks later, Elias returned to the throne of Accord. The chamber was silent, vast, and luminous, its lines of energy pulsing faintly as if acknowledging his presence. He approached carefully, feeling the weight of history and expectation. The throne remained quiet, waiting. It had already judged, already recognized, and now it seemed to invite reflection rather than action. Kale followed closely. "It watches," he said, "but it does not command. It waits." Elias placed a hand on the armrest, not to claim authority, but to connect, to understand. The energy hummed faintly, flowing into him with clarity, not power. He felt the history of the galaxy, the lessons of civilizations lost, and the responsibility of guiding without dominating. This was the true challenge, the true test. He understood that the throne's recognition was not an honor, but a burden. "I do not seek the crown," Elias said quietly. "I seek understanding." The galaxy must learn that strength alone does not rule. Responsibility, foresight, and courage must guide action. The throne pulsed in faint approval. It had already chosen a human not for conquest, but for demonstration. The galaxy would remember the lesson, even if it took generations to understand fully. Far above the chamber, stars glittered across the void, distant systems unaware that a subtle shift in perception had begun. Humanity, once dismissed and underestimated, had shown its worth. It was not in fleets or weapons, but in judgment, choice, and courage. Elias stepped back from the throne, calm and resolute. The galaxy had seen a new possibility, a new understanding of leadership. Valak would recover, as powerful and proud as ever, but the balance had changed. Authority was no longer absolute. Power alone could not command obedience or respect. The council, the fleets, the worlds, all watched and learned. Elias did not claim victory, he claimed responsibility. The throne had chosen him, but it had not made him a ruler. It had made him a guide, a symbol of what the galaxy could become if wisdom prevailed over force. As he left the chamber, the energy of the throne pulsed faintly behind him, a quiet heartbeat across the stars. The human who had stolen the throne's attention did not rule by power, did not dominate by fear. He walked among the galaxy with understanding, responsibility, and the courage to stand where no one else would. And in the silence of the cosmos, the stars seemed to acknowledge the beginning of a new age, where the value of a species was measured not by fleets or strength, but by the will to carry responsibility,